So in the last video, we talked about how to go from dread to neutrality, from neutrality to expansion. And we all understand that expansion is the ultimate. And, I really want to emphasize that expansion should be, it's definitely the end goal. It's definitely the end game. But we are on this planet, honestly, we're on this planet to learn how to make the steps up. We're on this planet for that. And we're all going to eventually be in expansion, whether it's this lifetime or another one. We're eventually all going to be in expansion. That's what nirvana is. That's what heaven is when we're all in expansion. But we're not all there. And so we just take our baby steps. We get from dread to neutrality to expansion. But just keep in mind, expansion is the goal. And when you've mastered it, then you start having all the things that you want. And I'm promising you, I don't care what anyone tells you, it's the journey, it's the process that makes it so rewarding. People say, no, I just want to be rich. What happens to lottery winners? No, that's not what you want. You are here, your soul is here on this planet to grow from deep despair to anger, to neutral, or to dread, to neutrality, to expansion. That is the whole name of the game. So don't think that you just want it handed to you. You will not appreciate it. You will not appreciate it. Okay. So today, I said I would do a video on the below dread. We know, just to recap, when we're in dread, we want to aim towards neutrality. We want to go from neutrality to expansion. And some of the ways out of neutrality is the gratitude game, or the thinking what I'm going to do when I'm done game, or all the wonderful things that I have because I'm doing these neutral tasks, whatever it is. And dread, we find ways to not be so dreadful, right? To get to neutrality, which is a pretty short jump. But what about when it's way deep? What about when it's depression or rage or anger or sadness? Now, before, in my career in this personal spiritual manifestation development world that I have been in for a long time now, I used to always teach, let's EFT our way out of it. Let's get those vibrations up. And honestly, that's what most manifestation teachers are still teaching. And I'm not anymore. And that is because I realized something that I didn't used to realize. And it's been part of my process. And I think you're going to see a lot more of it. And I'm not saying this at all with even a smidgen of arrogant ego. But I tend to be on the leading edge of things before they come to be really popular or well known. And I have never wanted a life of fame. I don't like to travel. I get like that in airplanes with tons of people at airports. I don't necessarily, I've spoken in front of up to 1,000 people before, but that's not my thing. It's not what I want to do. I like to teach mid-level groups, maybe 20, 30, 40 people. That's what I'm comfortable with. As a professor, I'm so used to that. And I love to write and research. That's my passion. And I love to work with my radionics. So fame has never been my thing. But when I say about being ahead of the pack, like I was doing a radio show before the word podcast was even invented. It was blog talk radio, if any of you are as old as me. And I did that, and I had thousands and thousands. I was on one radio station that I think we had 1 million downloads a month. So, but then I got bored with it. And then all of a sudden podcast became a big thing. And I'm like, oh, maybe I should have stuck with it. But I like my freedom, so I didn't. This is what I'm telling you. This is going to be a new thing you're going to be seeing if you're not already. And it's going to be about how our emotions have to process. And it's really interesting because therapy has been talking about this for years. But traditional therapy, has used the brain to do it. You cannot think yourself or talk yourself out of blocked energy. It's in your body. The issues are in your tissues. Okay. So a lot of therapists are on board with that. They'll be like, yeah, the issues are in your tissues. Really? Well, how are you getting it out? And so we have to do this with what we have to work with, which is somatic, which is movement of the body, and with breath work. There's a technique I use called havening, and there's a technique that I kind of created, not to take anything away from original EFT, because it's something I've used for the last 25 years, but I call it express EFT, where we express, not express like super fast, but but express like you express your emotions. So it's one of these things, and it's funny because to try to take this into the business arena, I'm sure I'm going to get some guff, and it's what I'm used to. So I mean, I don't care, but people in business suits and who are like, in the type A personalities, they're not going to want to hear, you want me to cry? So we don't present it like that. But I'm telling you, when your emotions are below dread, it means there's something in there that has to come out. And so breath work is a really easy way, not easy, but it's an effective way to get it out without talking about it. I'm not a big fan of talk therapy. My way, when I work with clients, the way that I get them from below dread to neutrality, so we can work on expansion, is to find out what the triggers are. Because whatever's triggering you, there's a pain there. If you get triggered by something your spouse says, that's not about your spouse. That reminded you of something that happened years ago, that you have never gotten over, that you've never expressed. We stuff down our emotions, right? We stuff them down, and they're stuffed, and they're stuffed, and they're stuffed. And by the time we're like 40, there's stuff so much in there, there's no more room for it. And people start expanding this way, right? So we have to express those feelings. And you can breathe them out. You can do express EFT. But the main thing is your central nervous system is like all jacked up. And so we need to calm that down. And from there, we can start doing the other healing. But what I want to talk to you about today that's so important is the understanding that when you get a trigger, that's when you need to work on it. Like a lot of people will get, let's use the example of, say you work in a corporate arena and you're at your office and your boss or someone says something negative to you, and you're like, I just have to hold it together till lunch. I just have to hold it together, and maybe you do. I'm not saying that you should just go out and be expressive in front of your staff. But when you do have the chance, you want to take that feeling and you want to lean into it. And if you can just excuse yourself to go into the bathroom, that could be enough. A lot of people will avoid, stuff down, hide from their emotions because they're afraid it's going to take them in. They don't want to feel like that. Who wants to feel like crap? Not me. But here's the thing. Once you dive into it and allow yourself to feel it, it literally lasts about 60 seconds. I want you to think about that. You've spent maybe 50, 60 years avoiding a feeling that you could have gotten through in 60 seconds. Think about that. That's like worse than saying if you saved $100 a month 10 years ago, you'd be a millionaire now. That's like, it's like disturbing, right? But it's true. So what I mean by that is, let's say you get a call from a client and it's not news you want, like they fire you. And you're like, I can't believe it. Da, 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 da. But if your rage that you're expressing is at the client and the situation, you're not getting it out of your body. You're simply reacting inappropriately to an old wound. So there's ways that we do it, which I can't do the whole thing here on a video. I talk about it a lot. So watch other videos, read books, blah, 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 blah. But the bottom line is you have to get back into where that rage is coming from, because that's where you have to express it from. What you're doing when someone calls and says something bad and you're just like, remember, this is where your emotions are. You're like, I can't believe they did that. I'm so mad at them. It's still coming from here. It's coming from your thoughts. It's coming from your head. You got to dig down there and say, let's pull this up. What is it connected to? It is a breadcrumb. Okay, it is a breadcrumb to the house that Hansel and Gretel are at. So you've got to dig it out like that. And I'm not saying you can't do it by yourself. Some people shouldn't do it by themselves, and some people should have professional help. But I'm just saying that you thinking that you're expressing it by just yelling about the person isn't what the issue is about. So you got to get in there and you got to dig that out. I'm a big fan of hitting pillows, of crying when things hit you, so you can get that emotion out right now. Big fan of EFT. So do those things when you get those triggers. But if you don't do the rest of the process, which is what I call the catch and release, you don't go inside and say, like, what did that remind me of? What would I have to believe to be so upset about that? It's not about the other person. You get freaked out because you don't have any money. It's not about money. It's about this blocked feeling in here that a long time ago you felt, and it was so scary that you said, I'm not feeling that no more. Let's stuff it in here. And something else happened because this energy is alive, and you're like, nope, you go back in there too, right? And we go like that. So we got to get down to that core. It's like a core wound or a core trauma. I think William Whitecloud, who's a shaman, who has some good books, I think he calls it the original wound. Whatever. But the original wound, whatever it is, mommy yelled at you, dad compared you to your brother, whatever it is, it kept. And even if the situation changed, the energy of that was in you, and so you kept attracting that same kind of wound from other places. Okay, getting really deep here. So the point is that in order, when you have an emotion that, or a reaction that takes you below dread, express it as much as you can in whatever space you have, whatever availability, whether it's EFT or hitting whatever. Get it out of your body. But just understand that's good work, but just understand it's not the work. It's good work in that you're not adding to what you stuffed down. So it's good work in that way, but you still got to get down and pull that thing up, whatever it is. Okay. Like I do with my clients, I do heart healing, where we do a deep, like what I call an interactive hypnotherapy session, where we go deep and we go back into your childhood, and I say, what does this remind you of? And the first thing that pops in your mind, even if it seems like I don't have that memory, doesn't matter, right? Your subconscious mind is 95% of your thinking, and it knows what's going on all the time. So we do heart healing that way. Breath work is a good way that I found for my type A clients who don't really want to go into their heart and cry. Right? I've been like that too. I was like the kind of person, like, I'm not going to cry in front of a therapist. No, thank you. Breath work, though, you pull the emotions out. You pull them out. So there's all these ways that we can do that. But the main point here is that when you have a trigger of anything in your environment, just realize that you don't want it to go further into your body. And just realize it has nothing to do with whatever's going on in your environment. It has to do with what you feel. What you feel that you've been stuffing down. Okay, that was a lot. It was a lot. I hope it made sense to you. If not, please feel free to leave comments. I read them all, and I hope you have a beautiful day. Thank you for watching.